Alright, look, animation is hard, even for a major studio like Disney. That's why, over the years, they've had to reuse animation, character models, and even entire scenes to help the process along. Now, while some of these are harmless additions that you would have never noticed, others are major. Let's take a look. The first Disney movie I ever saw was Beauty and the Beast. Even from a young age, I was able to tell just how beautiful this film right in the middle of the Disney Renaissance truly was. It had iconic characters, some of the best songs Disney ever produced, a thrilling ending, and one reused piece of animation during one of the movie's most famous parts. That's right, the sequence that's shown on pretty much every poster, VHS cover, and Lilo and Stitch parody, the big ballroom dance between Belle and Beast. One of the first ever Disney films, Sleeping Beauty, doesn't have quite the cult following that some of the other Disney classics do. It's no mistake that Disney has adapted most of their films into live-action remakes, but for Sleeping Beauty, they concentrated on the one part everyone liked, Maleficent. So that's how they managed to rip the ballroom dance scene between Aurora and Prince Philip and throw it into Beauty and the Beast without most people noticing. Now, with Sleeping Beauty sharing a part of the title with Beauty and the Beast, we might be able to forgive this one and call it an intentional reference rather than a shameless copy. Now, I know most people call Disney's remake of The Lion King in 2019 a live-action film, but come on. They didn't train real lions, meerkats, and warthogs to sing Hakuna Matata. The new cast may have looked so real that they could have been on the Discovery Channel, but they were just as animated as Anna or Elsa from Frozen. So, it's interesting that this second animated take on The Lion King opted to stick so closely to the source material. Other remakes like Aladdin and especially Mulan decided to tell new takes on the classic 90s blockbusters. The new Lion King was at times a shot-for-shot remake that lifted sequences directly from the original. The only thing they changed was the cartoony style of the film into a photorealistic one, mirroring what Jon Favreau did with The Jungle Book only a few years earlier. While I'm mostly talking about reused Disney animations that the company hoped we wouldn't notice, there's one example I've always loved from Pixar that was very much intentional. That would be Buzz Lightyear's first scenes from the first two Toy Story movies. We see in both the video game world and the real world as Buzz looks out over a strange new world with his reflection showing his perspective in his helmet. Now, this really informs his mindset in the original Toy Story and why the strange circumstances seemed so familiar to him even though he wasn't on a new planet but a kid's bedroom. Fictional Buzz was used to going on strange missions, so what was Andy's room if not one more adventure? Honestly, I hope the new Lightyear movie pays homage to this when the new Buzz goes on his first mission. Alright, so it's been established that Disney's been recycling these sequences since the earliest days of the company, but few people seem to be asking why. Now, while most just assume that this was a way to save time or money, which sometimes it definitely was, most of the major examples of this come down to director Wolfgang, or Wooly as he was known, Reitherman. Apparently, animators didn't actually want to reuse any animation, but Wooly preferred to do it. Instead of taking a chance on a new sequence, he preferred to use one that he already knew would work. That's why this sort of thing is most prevalent in movies that he had a major hand in. Perhaps the greatest example of this is Robin Hood, which features the same animations from The Jungle Book, The Aristocats, Alice in Wonderland, Cinderella, and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. That movie is one flying elephant and a dragon fight away from referencing most of Disney's library at the time. So how exactly does Disney reuse this footage? Well, to answer that question, we first have to explain the process by which Disney accurately animated their characters in the first place. They would frequently film actors performing as their characters as a visual reference. They would then project this film onto a piece of glass and trace over it frame by frame in a process known as rotoscoping. This was a major technological breakthrough for Disney that allowed many of their early films to thrive, despite having to animate more complex sequences than anyone had ever attempted before that time. Later on, they would use this process for not just live-action references, but their previous animations as well. Alice in Wonderland provides an excellent example of both of these methods. Rare footage was actually discovered of young actress Catherine Beaumont performing scenes as Alice that were animated later on. The movie also took exterior shots from movies like Bambi and Pinocchio for Wonderland. If there's one film I hope doesn't get a modern remake, it's Bambi. Well, unless they do SNL's Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson version. I really don't want to relive my childhood pain of watching Bambi's mother get taken out in Jon Favreau's photorealistic animal style. It's bad enough that I had to watch it the first time, even if I have to admit that the film is something of an achievement for that era of Disney. Now here's a piece of Disney trivia for you. Bambi was originally set to be the company's second animated feature after the success of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. They found that animating the deer more realistically than Snow White's deer would be too difficult. Once they achieved that, it's clear that they were pretty proud of it. They reused animation from Bambi in everything from Beauty and the Beast to The Rescuers to The Fox and the Hound. The Princess and the Frog is a real milestone for Disney animation. It was the last film to use traditional animation instead of the Pixar style that had taken over the company. The animators were particularly inspired by classic Disney films like Pinocchio, Bambi, and especially Lady and the Tramp, which the filmmakers considered peak Disney style. And you can see this in practically every frame of the film. It holds true to the slightly more realistic style of Lady and the Tramp, Jiminy Cricket as an inspiration for Ray the Firefly, and the outdoor sequences for Bambi for the bayou scenes. That's why it's so surprising that they reused animation from a totally different era of Disney. It lifts a hair-pulling sequence from The Sword and the Stone, a distinctly 1960s style Disney film. Tiana and Naveen couldn't have shared even one noodle Lady and the Tramp style. The Winnie the Pooh franchise has been a surprising juggernaut for the Disney company. It being aimed at preschool audiences ended up being a huge success for the company for not only their animated properties, but merchandising as well. Today, profits from the franchise rank alongside those like Star Wars, Marvel, or the Disney Princess line. That's why it's so weird to me that this behemoth of a Disney franchise would reuse so much of their own animation. Not only do they take from movies like Lady and the Tramp, but they also shamelessly reused animations of Tigger in the exact same way. What, did they just think that their preschool audience wouldn't notice this? Well, they were right. Kids these days have no idea what it was like watching direct-to-video Disney sequels. Sure, Disney Plus might occasionally drop a short about Olaf or a sequel to Monsters, Inc., but there's nothing like the thrill of watching one of those VHS sequels to see if it sucked or not. On the one hand, there was The Lion King 2, which featured Simba and Scar's children and a plot based on Romeo and Juliet. Then there's The Little Mermaid 2, which just reverses the plot of the original by having Ariel's human daughter get turned into a mermaid by Ursula's long-lost sister. It shamelessly stole from the original without bringing a lot of new stuff to the table. So, it should be no surprise that they stole some of Ariel's most iconic moments for her daughter Melody to recreate. The songs were also pretty weak, though Under the Sea and Part of Your World were two hard acts to follow. As much shade as I throw at Disney for reusing animation for different projects, it's really not that big of a deal. If it saves time or it's just a simple creative choice, what does it matter? Well, that doesn't go for the Rescuers franchise, which shamelessly reused a sequence for the sequel The Rescuers Down Under. And even Kid Me was unhappy about that one. After the success of Frozen, Disney has finally learned their lesson and won't be reusing animation. Their next film will feature two brothers, Andrew and the older Edward, who can control sand, culminating in him making a sand fortress during a musical number. Wait, why does that sound familiar?